The Library of Alexandria. What was truly lost when it was destroyed? A bedtime history for adults, packed with history facts. Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we journey back more than 2,000 years to a time when the Mediterranean world was young and one city shone brighter than all others as a beacon of knowledge and learning. This is the story of the Library of Alexandria, perhaps the greatest repository of human wisdom the ancient world ever knew, and the mystery of what was truly lost when its halls fell silent. As you settle in and close your eyes, let yourself drift back through the centuries. Feel the warm Egyptian sun. Hear the rustle of papyrus scrolls. Imagine the quiet footsteps of scholars walking through marble corridors filled with the accumulated knowledge of civilizations. This is a story without villains or heroes, just the long, complex tale of how humanity once gathered its wisdom in one place, and how that wisdom eventually scattered to the winds of time. Take a deep breath, and let us begin at the very beginning, in the aftermath of Alexander the Great's extraordinary conquests. Part 1. The Founding. The death of Alexander and the birth of a dream. In the year 323 BC, Alexander the Great died in Babylon at the age of 32. He had conquered an empire that stretched from Greece to India, from Egypt to the borders of modern-day Afghanistan. But Alexander left no clear heir, and his vast empire was torn apart by his generals, the Diadochi, the successors who fought over the pieces of his legacy. One of these generals was Ptolemy, the son of Lagos. Ptolemy was a clever, calculating man who had fought alongside Alexander since childhood. When the empire was divided, Ptolemy claimed Egypt as his prize. In 305 BCE, he crowned himself pharaoh, establishing the Ptolemaic dynasty that would rule Egypt for nearly 300 years. Ptolemy understood something profound. Military might had won him a kingdom, but knowledge would secure his dynasty's place in history. And so, in the newly established capital of Alexandria, a city Alexander himself had founded on Egypt's Mediterranean coast, Ptolemy conceived of an ambitious project, a great museum and library that would gather all the knowledge of the world under one roof. The vision takes shape. The exact date of the library's founding remains shrouded in the mists of time, but most scholars believe it was established around 295 to 285 BCE during Ptolemy's reign. The library was not a standalone building, but part of a larger complex called the Museion, or museum, literally meaning the house of the Muses, those 9 Greek goddesses who presided over the arts and sciences. Ptolemy sought the guidance of Demetrius of Phalerum, an Athenian orator, philosopher, and former governor of Athens. Demetrius had been a student of Aristotle's successor, Theophrastus, and he understood the value of organized knowledge. It was Demetrius who helped shape the vision of what the library would become, not merely a collection of scrolls, but a living center of scholarship where the world's greatest minds could gather, study, debate, and push the boundaries of human understanding. The location chosen for this magnificent institution was in the royal quarter of Alexandria, near the harbor in the district known as Brutium. The museum and library stood close to the harbor, where ships from across the Mediterranean and beyond brought not just goods and trade, but ideas, texts, and the wisdom of distant cultures.
Part 2. The Golden Age. The Great Gathering. Under Ptolemy and his successors, particularly Ptolemy II, Philadelphus, and Ptolemy III, Euergetes, the library embarked on the most ambitious book-collecting program the world had ever seen. The Ptolemies were obsessed with gathering knowledge, and they pursued this goal with remarkable zeal and considerable resources. The librarians of Alexandria developed ingenious methods for acquiring texts. Every ship that docked at Alexandria's harbor was searched for books. When scrolls were found, they were taken to the library, copied by skilled scribes, and often the copy, not the original, was returned to the owner. The originals, marked as "from the ships," became part of the royal collection. Ptolemy III famously borrowed the official state manuscripts of the great Athenian tragedies, the works of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, putting down an enormous deposit of 15 talents of silver as security. The library copied these priceless texts and returned the copies to Athens, forfeiting the silver deposit but keeping the originals. Agents of the library traveled throughout the known world, to Athens and Rhodes, to Pergamum and Antioch, to Persia and India, buying, borrowing, and copying texts. They sought works in every language and on every subject: literature and poetry, history and geography, mathematics and astronomy, medicine and philosophy, religious texts and practical manuals. What the shelves held. At its height, ancient sources tell us the library contained somewhere between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls. Modern scholars debate these numbers. Some ancient figures were certainly exaggerated, but even conservative estimates suggest the library held at least 100,000 scrolls, an unprecedented collection for its time. But what exactly did these scrolls contain? Let us walk through those ancient halls in our imagination and see what knowledge rested on those shelves. There were the complete works of Homer, multiple versions of the Iliad and Odyssey, carefully compared and edited by the library scholars. There were the plays of the great Greek tragedians and comedians, many of which exist today only because they were preserved in Alexandria. The library held scientific treatises that would influence human thought for centuries. Euclid's Elements of Geometry was compiled here, a work so fundamental that it remained the basis of geometry teaching into the 20th century. The works of Archimedes on mathematics and physics, Apollonius on conic sections, Eratosthenes' calculations of the Earth's circumference, all were either written or preserved at Alexandria. In medicine, the shelves held the Hippocratic writings, as well as works on anatomy, surgery, and pharmacology from Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian sources. The library preserved astronomical treatises that tracked the movements of planets and stars, calendars from different cultures, and theories about the nature of the cosmos. There were historical works: Herodotus's Histories, Thucydides' account of the Peloponnesian War, local chronicles from dozens of cities, and records of dynasties from Egypt, Babylon, and Persia. There were works of philosophy: Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics, the Epicureans, texts debating the nature of reality, ethics, and the good life. And there were works from beyond the Greek world, texts in Egyptian, both in hieroglyphics and Demotic script, works from Mesopotamia, Persia, and possibly even India. Jewish scriptures were translated into Greek here, producing the Septuagint, the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible. The library was truly cosmopolitan, a meeting place of cultures and ideas. The scholars who walked these halls. The library and museum attracted the greatest minds of the ancient world. The Ptolemies offered generous salaries, tax exemptions, free meals, and access to the world's greatest collection of knowledge. Scholars came from across the Mediterranean to study, teach, and conduct research. Euclid taught here and wrote his Elements. Eratosthenes served as chief librarian and calculated the circumference of the Earth with remarkable accuracy by comparing the angles of shadows in Alexandria and Cyrene. Archimedes studied here, though he later returned to Syracuse, where he developed his famous principles of buoyancy and lever mechanics. Callimachus, the poet and scholar, created the Pinaches, a 120-volume catalog of the library's contents, the world's first library catalog and bibliography. Hero of Alexandria invented early machines, including a primitive steam engine. Galen, though he lived later, drew on the library's medical texts to develop his influential medical theories. Astronomers like Aristarchus proposed that the Earth moved around the Sun, an idea that would not gain acceptance until Copernicus nearly 2,000 years later. Hipparchus created the first comprehensive star catalog and discovered the precession of the eclipses. These halls echoed with debate and discussion, with the excitement of discovery, with the patient work of copying and translating, of comparing texts and seeking truth through careful scholarship. If you have already subscribed to our channel, we thank you for encouraging us to create these history lessons. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. We will greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Part 3. The Long Decline. The First Shadows. The story of the library's destruction is not a simple tale of a single catastrophic event. Instead, it is a long, slow tragedy that unfolded over centuries, marked by multiple incidents of damage, neglect, and loss. The first significant blow came in 48 BC during the Alexandrian War, when Julius Caesar found himself besieged in the palace quarter of Alexandria. Caesar ordered his men to set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. The fire spread beyond the ships, reaching the warehouses along the docks. Ancient sources disagree about the extent of the damage. The Roman historian Seneca, writing about a century later, mentions that 40,000 books burned in this fire. However, it is unclear whether these were scrolls from the main library itself or from warehouses containing books intended for export or temporary storage. The Great Library building in the museum complex may have been damaged but apparently continued to function. What is clear is that this fire represented a significant loss, even if the main collection survived largely intact. Some unique manuscripts, some irreplaceable texts turned to ash in those flames, and we will never know exactly what knowledge died that day. The Roman period. As Rome's power grew and Egypt became increasingly dependent on Roman support, the character of Alexandria and its institutions began to change. In 30 BC, after the deaths of Cleopatra VII and Mark Antony, Egypt became a Roman province. The Ptolemaic dynasty ended, and with it, the lavish royal patronage that had sustained the library for nearly 3 centuries. The Romans were not hostile to learning, far from it. Many Roman emperors and officials appreciated Greek culture and scholarship, but the library no longer enjoyed the focused, generous support of Egyptian rulers who saw it as a symbol of their dynasty's legitimacy and glory. There is evidence that the museum and library continued to function under early Roman rule. Scholars still worked there, and the collections were still maintained, though perhaps not with the same vigor and resources as before. The geographer Strabo visited around 20 BCE and used the library's resources for his work. But there were other incidents of loss. When the Emperor Aurelian fought to recapture Alexandria from the breakaway Palmyrene Empire in 272 CE, parts of the city were destroyed, including buildings in the Bruchium district, where the original library stood. It is possible that the main library building was damaged or destroyed at this time, though some sources suggest it had already declined significantly by then. The daughter library and the Serapeum. We must pause here to mention an important detail that often causes confusion. In addition to the main library in the museum, there was a smaller daughter library located in the Temple of Serapis, known as the Serapeum. This temple, built on a hill in the southwestern part of the city, housed a significant collection of texts, perhaps numbering in the tens of thousands. The Serapeum became increasingly important as the main library declined. It served as a center of learning and housed what remained of Alexandria's scholarly collections. This is important to remember as we continue our story. The changing religious landscape. By the 4th century, the Mediterranean world was undergoing a profound transformation. Christianity, once a persecuted minority religion, became the official religion of the Roman Empire under Constantine and his successors. This religious shift had far-reaching consequences for institutions associated with pagan learning and culture. Alexandria, which had been a center of Christian theology and scholarship, the great Christian thinkers Clement and Origen had taught there, also became a battleground between Christians and pagans and between different Christian factions. The old pagan temples and institutions became targets of violence and destruction. In 391, tensions between Christians and pagans in Alexandria erupted into violence. The Christian patriarch Theophilus received imperial approval to destroy pagan temples. A mob attacked the Serapeum, the temple of Serapis, which housed the daughter library. The temple was demolished, its statues destroyed, and its library, the last significant remnant of Alexandria's great scholarly collections, was apparently lost. Ancient sources differ on exactly what happened to the books. Some suggest they were burned, others imply they were scattered or removed before the temple's destruction. Some scholars argue that the collections had already been dispersed by this time, and there was little left to destroy. What we know for certain is that this marked the end of Alexandria as a major center of pagan learning and scholarship. The great project that had begun 600 years earlier under the first Ptolemy was effectively over. The Arab conquest, separating myth from history. We must address one more story, though historians now largely regard it as legend rather than fact. According to accounts written centuries after the events, when Arab forces conquered Alexandria in 641 CE, the Arab general Amr ibn al-As wrote to the caliph asking what to do with the library's books. Omar supposedly replied that if the books agreed with the Quran, they were unnecessary, and if they disagreed, they were heretical. Either way, they should be burned. The books were then allegedly used to fuel the city's bathhouses for 6 months. This story first appears in writing about 500 years after the supposed events in the works of a Christian bishop writing in the 13th century. No contemporary or near-contemporary sources mention this burning, and most modern historians consider the story to be a later invention, possibly created to cast blame on the Arabs or to explain the library's disappearance. In fact, by 641, there is little evidence that any significant library still existed in Alexandria. The great collections had long since been dispersed, damaged, or destroyed. The Arab conquest did not burn the Library of Alexandria because by that time, there was no Library of Alexandria left.
Part 4. What was truly lost. The incalculable cost. As we rest quietly in the darkness, let us contemplate what was truly lost when the Library of Alexandria fell silent. The losses were not just material, ancient scrolls and papyri, but intellectual, cultural, and civilizational. We know about many of these losses through references in surviving texts. Ancient authors mention books and writers whose works have completely disappeared. Imagine entire libraries within the library, whole sections we can barely glimpse through fragmentary references and quotations. Consider Greek drama. We possess 7 tragedies by Aeschylus, 7 by Sophocles, and 19 by Euripides. Yet ancient catalogs tell us that Aeschylus wrote approximately 70 to 90 plays, Sophocles wrote over 120, and Euripides wrote 92. The Library of Alexandria held copies of these works. Where are they now? Lost, vanished, gone forever. Entire plays that once moved audiences to tears or laughter, that explored the depths of human nature and divine mystery, exist now only as titles on ancient lists. The same is true for history. We have Herodotus and Thucydides, but dozens of other historians, Ephorus, Theopompus, Timaeus, and many others wrote comprehensive histories that are now lost. We know about them only through brief mentions in surviving works. Imagine the perspectives we have lost, the details of daily life, the understanding of ancient cultures that died with those texts. In science and mathematics, the losses may be even more profound. We know that Greek and Hellenistic scientists achieved remarkable insights. They understood that the Earth was spherical, calculated its circumference, proposed heliocentric models of the solar system, studied anatomy through dissection, and developed sophisticated mechanical devices. But many of their detailed observations, experimental methods, and theoretical frameworks are lost to us. The library contained works on agriculture, architecture, medicine, and engineering, practical knowledge that could have advanced human civilization if it had survived. There were maps of lands we can no longer identify, descriptions of peoples and cultures now vanished, astronomical observations that could help us understand ancient celestial events. Perhaps most poignantly, we lost diversity of thought and culture. The library contained works from Egyptian, Persian, Indian, and other non-Greek traditions. These voices, these different ways of understanding the world, were preserved in translation and commentary. When the library declined, much of this cross-cultural dialogue was silenced. The butterfly effect of lost knowledge. Sometimes at night, historians and philosophers wonder about the path not taken. What if the library had survived? What if that concentration of knowledge, that tradition of scholarship and research had continued unbroken? Would the scientific revolution have come centuries earlier? Would we have avoided the intellectual stagnation that characterized parts of the medieval period? Would religious conflicts have been less intense if the tradition of philosophical inquiry and tolerance for diverse ideas had remained stronger? These questions are unanswerable, of course. History does not reveal its alternative paths. But it is worth contemplating as we drift to sleep how different our world might be if that one institution had endured. We do know that the loss of the library coincided with a broader decline in scientific and mathematical innovation in the Mediterranean world. It would be many centuries before European scholars would again achieve the level of astronomical understanding that Hipparchus had reached, or before engineers would match the mechanical sophistication of Harrow's inventions.
Part 5. What survived? The scattered inheritance. But our story is not entirely one of loss. Some of the library's legacy survived, though often by circuitous and unlikely paths. Like seeds scattered by the wind, fragments of the library's knowledge found new soil and eventually flourished again. When scholars left Alexandria, they took books with them. Some texts survived in other libraries at Pergamum, Constantinople, and Rome. Medieval monasteries in Europe preserved some Greek and Roman texts, copied and recopied by monks who often did not fully understand what they were preserving. Perhaps more importantly, much of Greek learning was preserved in the Islamic world. As the Arab caliphates expanded, Muslim scholars developed a deep appreciation for Greek philosophy, science, and medicine. They sought out Greek texts, translated them into Arabic, studied them, and built upon them. Libraries in Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba became the new centers of learning, carrying forward the traditions that had once flourished in Alexandria. Scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, Avicenna, and Ibn Rushd, Averroes, engaged deeply with Greek texts, preserving and extending their ideas. Many Greek works that are now lost in their original language survive only in Arabic translations. When these Arabic texts eventually made their way back to Western Europe during the Renaissance, often through Muslim Spain, they sparked a revival of classical learning. Scholars rediscovered Aristotle, Euclid, and Ptolemy, not in Greek, but in Arabic translations. This knowledge, which had traveled from Alexandria to Baghdad and then to Cordoba, finally returned to European universities, helping to fuel the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. Modern fragments and discoveries. Even today, fragments of texts from the library's era continue to surface. Archaeologists have discovered papyri in the dry sands of Egypt, some containing previously unknown works or new fragments of known texts. The Oxynchronthus papyri, discovered at the end of the 19th century and still being studied today, have yielded portions of lost Greek plays, poems, and historical texts. In 1945, a collection of Gnostic texts was found at Nag Hammadi in Egypt, including works that may have been studied or copied by scholars associated with Alexandria. In 1952, the Cairo Geniza revealed a treasure trove of Jewish texts, some with connections to Alexandrian scholarship. Modern technology has even allowed scholars to read texts that appear completely destroyed. Using techniques like multispectral imaging and X-ray fluorescence, researchers have recovered text from burned or damaged papyri, revealing words written 2,000 years ago that no human eye has seen for centuries. Where to find echoes today? If you wish to see remnants of Alexandria's legacy today, you might visit several places. The Biblioteca Alexandrina, a modern library and cultural center built near the site of the ancient library, opened in 2002. While it does not contain the ancient texts, it seeks to revive the spirit of the original institution as a center of learning and cross-cultural dialogue. Major museums around the world hold papyri and artifacts from ancient Alexandria. The British Library, the Louvre, the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and many university collections preserve fragments that once might have been part of the Great Collection. But perhaps the truest legacy of the library exists not in any physical location, but in the ongoing tradition of scholarship, the belief that knowledge should be gathered, preserved, and shared, that libraries and universities serve a vital function in society. Every modern library, every research institution, every archive preserving human knowledge, these are the spiritual descendants of the Library of Alexandria.
Part 6. Lessons from the Long Silence. The Fragility of Knowledge. As we near the end of our journey tonight, let us reflect on what the story of Alexandria teaches us. First and foremost, it reminds us of the profound fragility of knowledge and culture. We often assume that important information, once created, will naturally persist. But the story of Alexandria shows us how easily knowledge can be lost. Fire, water, war, neglect, religious intolerance, economic decline, political upheaval, all of these can destroy in moments what took generations to create. Every text in the Library of Alexandria had been written by hand, often existing in only one or a few copies. When those copies burned or crumbled into dust, the knowledge they contained vanished, often completely and forever. We live in an age of digital abundance, where information seems permanent and endlessly replicable. Yet even now, formats become obsolete, websites disappear, and digital files can vanish as completely as papyrus in a fire. The importance of institutions. The library also reminds us of the importance of institutions dedicated to preserving and advancing knowledge. The Ptolemies understood that a civilization is measured not just by its military might or economic prosperity, but by its intellectual and cultural achievements. They invested enormous resources in the library, not because it generated immediate profit or provided military advantage, but because they believed that gathering and preserving knowledge was intrinsically valuable. Modern societies often struggle to maintain this commitment, especially during economic hardships or political turmoil. The fate of Alexandria reminds us what we stand to lose when we neglect our libraries, museums, universities, and archives. Knowledge transcends borders. Another lesson is the universal nature of knowledge and the importance of cross-cultural exchange. The Library of Alexandria was not narrowly Greek or Egyptian, but cosmopolitan. It sought wisdom from all cultures, Greek and Egyptian, Persian and Indian, Jewish and Babylonian. This openness enriched everyone who studied there. Ideas from different traditions cross-pollinated, leading to new insights and innovations. When institutions become insular, when cultures close themselves off from outside influences, intellectual progress slows. The library flourished because it was open. It declined as the Mediterranean world became more divided by religious and cultural barriers. The long arc of knowledge. Finally, the story of the library and its scattered legacy teaches us that knowledge, while fragile, is also surprisingly resilient. Ideas, once released into the world, have a way of surviving against remarkable odds. A text copied by a scholar fleeing Alexandria might end up in Constantinople. From there, it might be copied again and taken to Baghdad. Translated into Arabic, studied and expanded upon by Muslim scholars, it might then travel to Spain. There, it could be translated into Latin by a Christian scholar, eventually reaching a university in Paris or Oxford. Printed during the Renaissance, it becomes accessible to a wider audience than its ancient author could ever have imagined. This is not the path the Ptolemies envisioned when they built their great library. Instead, knowledge survived by dispersing, by being copied and translated, by finding new homes in unexpected places. Sometimes, security comes not from concentration, but from distribution.
Please like and subscribe this video. We would greatly appreciate that. Thank you. Conclusion: The Eternal Library. As you rest now in the quiet darkness, imagine the Library of Alexandria not as it was, a physical building that declined and disappeared, but as an idea that persists. Imagine the countless scholars who walked those halls, their faces long since turned to dust, but their curiosity, their dedication to truth, their belief in the value of knowledge still alive in every researcher who seeks to understand our world. Imagine the texts that were lost, not with sadness for what we can never recover, but with wonder at what we have managed to preserve, and with determination to protect what remains. Imagine the library as it might have been on a quiet afternoon 2,000 years ago. Sunlight streaming through high windows, illuminating dust motes floating in the air, the whisper of papyrus as a scholar carefully unrolls a scroll, the scratch of a stylus on wax tablet as someone takes notes, soft footsteps on marble floors, the murmur of conversation as two researchers debate a fine point of philosophy or mathematics. In that imagined silence, in that reconstructed peace, we find something important, the reminder that knowledge is worth preserving, that truth is worth seeking, that the patient work of learning and understanding is one of humanity's highest callings. The Library of Alexandria is gone. We will never know exactly what was lost when its collections scattered and its halls fell silent, but the spirit that created it, the belief that knowledge should be gathered, preserved, studied, and shared, that spirit lives on. In every library that opens its doors to seekers of knowledge, in every archive that carefully preserves the records of the past, in every university where researchers push the boundaries of understanding, in every digital repository that makes information freely available to all, in all these places, the Library of Alexandria endures. And now, as you drift gently towards sleep, carry with you this image, a vast library containing all the knowledge humanity has gathered, all the wisdom of ages past, all the questions yet unanswered, all the discoveries waiting to be made. This library exists not in one place, but everywhere. It is not made of stone and marble, but of human curiosity, dedication, and hope. You are part of that library. Every question you ask, every book you read, every moment of wonder at the complexity and beauty of our world, these add to the grand collection that the Ptolemies began so long ago. Sleep well and dream of knowledge preserved and wisdom shared, of questions asked and answers sought, of the eternal human quest to understand, and of libraries, ancient and modern, physical and digital, keeping watch through the darkness, preserving the light of learning for generations yet to come. Always remember, you are blessed, you are loved, you are a part of the divine. Good night.